If you want to save time and still get accurate results, then partner with 4 Pillars Research, proud sponsors of PI Perspectives. We specialize in uncovering insurance policies that can make or break your case. From identifying unknown policies to uncovering accurate policy information, we streamline the process so you can focus on your case. Partner with 4 Pillars Research and unlock the full potential of your investigations. Visit researchfpr.com to learn more.
Private investigators, are you spending hours digging through online data? There's a better way. Scope Now is your all-in-one OSINT platform, automating the collection and analysis of publicly available information so you get results faster. Workbench helps you uncover key details on individuals and businesses. Link analysis connects the dots between entities, and PreCheck flags potential risks in seconds. Plus, with Grid, you'll get real-time intelligence alerts, keeping you ahead of emerging threats. Stop the manual searching. Let Scope Now do the heavy lifting. Learn more at scopenow.com.
We're proud to announce a partnership with InvestigatorConference.com. This free site tracks all the live events in the industry. Want to plan out your travel schedule to see what events are happening in the next few months? Are you hosting an event? Send them an email to add the date. Visit the site today. That's investigator-conference.com. Investigator-conference.com.
Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthew.s@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode.
Welcome to the next episode of PI Perspectives. Today we have a very special guest. Communications consultant and elegant warrior, Heather Hansen, joins the program. Heather is a seasoned trial attorney who has identified a method to asking the right questions to clients and witnesses during trial. This is an episode you don't want to miss, and it's packed with useful information. So please welcome Heather Hansen and New York Private Eye, Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to the next episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we're going to try something a little bit different. So a few months ago, I went to something called a Connect 4 breakfast. I was invited by one of my attorney clients for a very, very interesting conversation. So interesting that I said, I got to have this person on my program. So Heather Hansen, I want to welcome you to the program. How are you?
I am so good. I'm so happy to be here, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So you've got a book, The Elegant Warrior. You're a former or still an attorney, right? You're still practicing?
I'm still an attorney, but I'm not practicing. I'm doing consulting so I'm consulting with trial attorneys to help them tell their stories.
Right. So a psychology degree and meditation training, or mediation and meditation, right? Meditation, I get that right?
Mediation is the certification. Although I don't talk about this often for no other reason than people don't seem to care about. I'm also certified as a hypnotist. So very close to meditation.
Right. That's what it was. Again, forgive me. Really interesting concept, right? So we had talked about basically interviewing people and getting the answers that you need out of them, like creating that rapport, that comfort level. And I thought was really, really cool. So let's just back up for a second. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into the nitty gritty.
Sure. So I'll talk about it in terms of what's going to be most important for your audience. I had a psychology degree from undergrad. I went to law school, and my legal career was defending doctors in medical malpractice cases. And so just like you have to get witness statements, we had to take depositions. I had to prepare the healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, administrators for their depositions, but also take the depositions of the patients who had been injured, and found that there are certain things that you can do to ensure that you connect with people. I mean, none of this is, manipulative or nasty. It's just trying to create connections and to allow people to believe that you are coming from a good place, and then to compel them to answer your questions truthfully. And so I have over the years developed tools that help all of those things happen. And now I teach those tools in a number of different arenas, like the one where you and I met.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, it was so good. It was like I wasn't sure what it was going to be like going in. Obviously you get invited by a client who says, "Yeah, you should really go to this." Yeah, okay. Tell me when and where.
Sure.
And it was interesting because I'd never been in that setting before, and in an environment that was so like just low key, people having breakfast, but then a really engaging conversation.
Yeah.
Like I was surprised like how everybody was really like razor sharp in on it.
Yeah, it was a great crowd. It really was. And I love, the things that I teach. A lot of times when people hear that I'm a trial attorney, they almost shut off their ears because they're like, well, I'm not a trial attorney. I'm
Right,
not so interested. But the tools that we use in the courtroom are the exact same tools that everybody has their jury. That's what I always say, Matt.
right.
Their jury is anyone who gives you a win. So if it's a person that you want to become a client, they're your jury. If it's your child that you want to eat their broccoli, they are your jury. And the tools that we use in the jury in the courtroom can be used by anyone and everyone.
Yeah, and that's the concept I thought was so fascinating, right? It's these skills, these people, person to person skills, right? Something AI is never going to take away,
That's right.
right? You either have it or you don't, right? And the courtroom is one place where AI is never going to replace an attorney in the courtroom. Probably never going to replace a jury either. Hopefully,
Yeah, that's right. It's hopeful. I mean, there's talk about it, but you're right. These communication skills are going to be more and more important, and they already are. They already are the really important skills. But as machines take away a lot of the other things, these things are going to rise up in importance in our communications. And they're skills that can be learned. Yes, there are some people that these things come naturally to, but anyone can learn how to use the tools that I teach, which are compassion, credibility, and charisma, to be more effective in almost any setting.
Yeah, so let's break that down. So compassion, credibility, are the first two there. Let's jump into compassion.
So compassion, if you look up the definition, you'll see something like the ability to see another's pain and relieve it. And that is the way that I like to define it. It's the ability to understand what someone's going through and then speak to that, as opposed to speaking to what you want to speak to. And
Right.
so we talk a lot about empathy these days, and I make the important distinction between cognitive empathy, which is also perspective taking, and that's seeing what the other person sees, and effective empathy, which is feeling what they feel. So for your listeners, if you're taking a witness statement, that witness may have experienced something very traumatic, and they may be angry, scared, frustrated, confused. And I don't think you have to take on their emotion in order to show compassion.
Yeah.
I do think, though, it is important to be able to see the situation from their perspective. So if you're taking a witness statement and the person looks like uncomfortable and might be more comfortable sitting down, you say, would you be better off sitting down? You see the room from their perspective. An example that I can give is, I defended healthcare providers in medical malpractice cases.
Sure.
When they would walk into the courtroom and see me speaking to opposing counsel and often being friendly with opposing counsel, if I didn't see the room from their perspective, I wouldn't note that they might not like that. And
Right.
then I wouldn't speak to it. And now that I do note it, I can be compassionate and say, I know you saw me talking to opposing counsel. It doesn't mean that I am not your advocate. It just means that you can sometimes catch more flies with honey than you can
Right.
with vinegar. And so making sure that you see the world from the other person's perspective as best you can, and
Sure.
also ask them about their perspective, and then speak to or act to that perspective. That's where the compassion piece comes in.
Yeah, I've always found like when you're interviewing people, if they're willing to help, because sometimes they just don't want to get involved, but if they're actually like a willing participant, it's almost that situation where they want to insert themselves in the narrative. Like you got to make them feel like a VIP, like what their version, what they have to say is the most important thing out there, and let them get it out, right?
100%. I mean, again, if you see it from their perspective and you see that this is something that they're like excited to tell the story, or they're reluctant to tell the story, chances are they're more excited. They want to be that VIP. Then you can make them feel that way and make sure that you're doing so. Everyone is different. A younger person getting a witness statement from someone younger, you're going to want to approach it than someone older, and men and
Right.
women are different. And so making sure that you don't put your own perspective about the witness statement or the situation, and instead really trying to understand theirs. The perfect example is the jury. If I can see the case from the jury's perspective, then I have a chance of changing their perspective. And in my cases, everybody on the jury was a patient. Nobody on the jury in all of my years, and I did this for decades, nobody on the jury was a doctor. And so I had to see it from their perspective, and then I could build credibility and use charisma to change that perspective. But it will never happen if you don't start with compassion.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. Like I think people discredit rapport, like how much of a game changer that can be in what we do, and just creating that comfort level.
People want to get right to the other pieces, right? Like, and so, but without starting with them and really working to say, like, what is their pain? What are they afraid of? What are they upset about? What are they confused about? What are they proud of, to your point? Then you can start to connect with them and alleviate some of those more negative emotions and
Sure.
optimize the more positive ones.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with the Children's Victim Act, the sex crimes and sex trafficking. Like that's such a big piece of how that works. And interestingly enough, some of the stuff we do is we interview our clients before the case even starts.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so let's get a third party, someone who's not an attorney representing that person directly, who's like the client may just give them the answers they think they want to hear.
Right.
By doing that separate interview with somebody who's got a good foundation of, whether or not there's an actual case, that they can steer the narrative in a certain direction and ask the right questions, really important.
Yeah, it's so important. And your point is well taken, because, we've talked about this a little bit before we hit record, that, one of the things I often say is data is the ingredients and evidence is the meal. The facts, there's lots of facts out there, right? And if your client wants to tell a specific story with those facts, then you have to collect the facts and use them to support the story that your client wants to tell, because the other side is going to be doing the same thing. And so ultimately you want to use the data to make the best possible meal.
Yeah, as somebody who like cooks on the side, like that one just hit me hard when you said that.
It's such a good visual too, right? Because everybody, the opposing attorney has the same ingredients.
Yeah,
but they're making a very different meal. And so you really want to do the work to optimize the meal that you want your people to eat.
Well, not only that, I look at it also as like a baking aspect, and I'm a terrible baker. Like I love to cook. I can't bake for a lick, right? And the problem is that the ingredients need to be so specific, right? So you got to have the exact amount of baking powder, otherwise it's jacked, right? It's not going to work, right? So I look at that from an investigative standpoint, right? So the narrative needs to fall in line with all the other ingredients, right? And I may think that the investigation is the most important ingredient. I mean, maybe, who knows?
Well, and it's a really good point, right? Because if you're doing an investigation for a lawyer, they do have to bake with it to a certain degree. I don't want to make this analogy go crazy, but the thing is that under the law, there's certain evidence that you have to present in order to get over motions or being thrown out of court. And so as an attorney, I have to bake and cook, because I do want to be creative and be able to use the data to turn it into evidence to support my story. But I also want to make sure that I get that specific evidence I need to get me over any motion that the other side might file.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like understanding what those laws are, what the evidence needs to be, right? That's how AI helps investigators
That's
if
right.
you use it correctly, you know,
That is 100% right. And double check it, right? Because I
obviously,
find
right?
this is my experience with AI, because I use AI a lot. I find that when it comes to legal, it's where it seems to make the most mistakes, in my opinion. You
Yeah,
know, I've seen so many cases where lawyers cite cases that don't exist because they used AI to help write their
yeah,
brief. And that
yeah,
scares the heck out
yeah,
of us lawyers who are afraid of judges. So yeah, I think that you want to definitely run those things through AI and then
sure.
confirm it with the attorney that you're working with.
Yeah, it's think of it more of as like quality control, right? So understanding the case law and what's necessary to prove your clients, whoever you're working for, whatever their theory is, right? If you understand that, you're using AI to understand that, and then also the communication back and forth with the attorney to make sure that's what they want, right? Really, really important.
Yeah, it's a perfect combo.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. So we're gonna take a break here. When we come back, we got two more C's to cover. So everybody sit tight. We'll be right back and continue the conversation. Thanks.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Managing a team of investigators just got easier with TrackOps, the all-in-one case management software. Are you ready to enhance case flows and drive efficiency? TrackOps offers powerful management and coordination tools to streamline workflows and communication, all designed to keep your team synchronized and focused on the task at hand. With TrackOps, you can easily distribute workloads, track individual performance, and ensure deadlines are met. Plus, the TrackOps mobile app allows investigators to access case activities on the go. And the TrackOps video app allows for simple and consistent timestamping, all included at no extra cost. Start streamlining your investigation process today. Visit trackops.com for a free 15-day trial and experience the power of efficient team management. TrackOps, empowering teams, simplifying management. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we are here with Heather Hansen, the Elegant Warrior. We are talking some really, really cool stuff about just people in general and how to talk to people, how to get information out of them, how to create a narrative, and be convincing. And even pets like to agree with us,
Yes, he certainly does.
which is fantastic. So, Heather, welcome back to the program, and
So
thanks for
happy
being
to
with
be
us.
back. Wolf is happy to be back too. He's always
There you go. There you go. Hey, no comments from the peanut gallery, please, until we're done.
right.
So,
Right.
so we had talked about building rapport, compassion, and really bringing that home. But you've got a couple more C's to talk about. So let's dive into the next one.
Yeah, so the next one's credibility. And I often say that that's the most important C, because in the courtroom, if the jury, even if the jury thought I was compassionate, they thought I was kind, funny, prepared, smart, any of the things, if they don't believe me and my client, we can't win. And credibility is that ability to build belief, to get people to actually believe what it is that you want them to believe.
Right.
And the way that I like to talk about it, Matt, is that there's three parts to it. You want people to believe you. When you make a promise, you keep it. When you set an expectation, you'll meet it. That's the first part. You want them to believe in you. That's your resume, your curriculum vitae, the things you've done, the things you've studied. And then the most important part that people often forget is you want them to believe that you can help them.
Right.
That sort of loops back to the compassion piece, right? Because if you haven't made that connection and seen the world from their perspective, then you're never going to be able to get them to believe that you can actually help them and their problem.
Sure.
If you get those three together, you can build credibility pretty easily and quickly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even like being somebody who has testified in court and being that third party, like that's a really, really big deal. And it's so funny because sometimes you'll get up there and the attorney that you're going against will ask a question that they don't know an answer to. And to
Yes.
me, like that's always a mistake. Like I had this situation, this guy, he asked me, he says, how much money do you make? And I'm just like, okay, well, that's a very random question. I didn't understand it. So I was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean how much money to make? Me personally or sales for my business? And he saw his opportunity there because that word sales to him was, oh, you're a
Yes.
salesman, right? He starts
Yes.
hitting me.
Yes.
You're a salesman. You're going to sell anything. He's attacking my credibility, right? You're going to say whatever you need to say to make your client happy. But I saw that as, no, the New York State Department of Tax and Finance requires me to collect sales tax on the work I do. So I'm going to call it sales. And then I saw like 4 jurors put their hands over their mouths and started laughing at him. And I was like, in your face, pal. And he said,
Yeah.
enough.
I think that that's a great point. We are always trying to use words. Those are our arms, right? I'm sorry, the dog's barking at something.
Sorry, he doesn't like credibility, obviously.
Oh my God, he's really Wolfie. Come here. This new apartment, he can see out the window everywhere, and
That's
it's
all
a
good.
real issue.
All good. We're a pet friendly show here.
Oh my gosh. But no, we are trying to hit your credibility. We really are. And we're trying to use words like, sales, and trying to say like, you make so much money that you clearly do this for a reason. And that's the whole believe in you piece. Like, whether or not you are a paid actor here, or whether you are someone who has the background and the experience to speak to this issue, or having done the investigation. Credibility is everything, and it is always something that we are trying to build on our side and knock down on cross-examination.
Yes, and as investigators, we get hired to help out with that too.
100%. 100%.
Look into this expert witness. I had an interesting thing happen actually. So I had somebody who was a civil engineer, and this is one of the only episodes that I never aired. Civil engineer came in, talked about investigators and civil engineers working together, what that looks like, how to get them the correct information that they need to do their job. It was fantastic, right? So he calls me up after, freaking out. He goes, yeah, we can't air this episode. I'm like, why not? He goes, well, I don't want anything I said on that show to be used against me later on if I need to testify. I was like, fair enough. You probably should have thought of that before you.
100%.
I didn't solicit this guy. He solicited me to come on my show. It's like, I'd like to come on. I'm like, you should have thought about that beforehand, pal.
Yeah, it is something that you have to think about. And as an attorney and investigators, I mean, this is what you do. It's funny because I listened to a podcast this morning about a plaintiff's case in medical malpractice. And he was talking about how when he cross-examined the expert on the other side, she had done courses for experts on how to make money as an expert witness. Right. And in those courses, one of the scenes had her standing with like dollar signs flying all around her, saying about all the money you can make as an expert. Well, that's a huge credibility killer. I mean, you're done in the courtroom. And so you do have to be aware, like the civil engineer, smart to be aware that anything he said could be used, not so smart to have said it all and then changed his mind. But, it is something to always be aware of that, that's the whole, you've got to be consistent.
Yes.
And it's important.
So the kicker was, I asked him, I said, well, is there anything specifically on there you're concerned about? Because maybe I could just edit that out. Yeah. He goes, no, I thought it was great. Well, like I thought his wife was an attorney. And she was really giving him a hard time about it, So
well, and that's the thing that I'm big on credibility, but I do think that part of credibility is that authenticity.
Right.
And so I think sometimes people are so afraid that they're going to be seen as, especially in that believe in you piece, that their credentials will somehow be messed with. I think
Right.
it probably happens to investigators. I know it happens with healthcare providers. They think they have to be seen as superhuman.
Right.
And so they won't admit to some things that would actually give them more credibility, especially with a jury. So there's a little bit of a line there where you
Yeah.
have to be authentically yourself.
I think understanding human nature, and it's like diffusing bombs, like you talked earlier about, just like knowing about these things and laying a foundation to really make it hit or hurt less when it hits, because it's coming, right?
100%.
That's a big deal.
And a big part of it, and we'll get to charisma shortly, but a big part of it is your energy when you answer those questions, or when you're hit with something that could hit your credibility. Like, I'm sure, Matt, that not only did the sales question, you answered it beautifully with words, but I'm sure that also you were unflappable. You didn't get all nervous. You weren't all squirrely. Your voice didn't get all high, like, oh, well, I don't really do sales and it's all about the taxes. Like, that is, words are really not as important as tone of voice and the energy with which you deliver them.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of this.
It's my New York sarcasm. It could have got me in trouble too, though.
Yeah, but yours, like, it, they get bored. They
Yeah.
want, they want something, a little bit of entertainment.
I was actually annoyed. I was annoyed with the attorney I was working for. I was like, how are you letting this go? Like, this has nothing really to do with the case,
Yeah, but sometimes it's an interesting thing, because I had a mentor who very rarely objected, probably not enough. But he always said, like, let the jury, they're going to think you're hiding something from them, which I
Yeah.
think is true, right? When you object, unless it's something that's totally crazy, and if you trust the witness, let him answer it. And
Yeah.
it really, I think, probably shows how much your client trusted you. Like, he
Yeah.
can handle this, and why, like, act like he can't?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we don't really get asked to testify that often. It happens every now and then. But I feel like if you do the work properly, it kind of like,
They don't want you to.
yeah, at least like it's there already. Like, what's there to dispute about?
Right.
Sometimes it's, the metadata on the photo. Like I get called in for that. I got called in once because a witness basically perjured himself on the stand, and they brought me in behind to really nail him. So I had taken a statement from this guy. It was a premises case, a trip and fall, and it was the owner of a diner, and I had identified myself, who I was working for, what I was there for, and took a statement from him. But I recorded it. And New York's a one-party state, so it was completely
Yeah.
audio recorded. He got up and he testified that I never identified who I was. It was he told this whole story that it never even given him a copy of the statement. And the funny thing is, the guy had a copier in his office when we were taking the statement. And he's like, I said, hey, I can make a copy. He says, no, I got a copier here. I'll make a copy. You can literally hear the audio, the Xerox copier going.
My word, yeah.
So they brought, and that guy perjured himself, and then they brought me in behind to do my thing, and then they played the audio. They brought him back on and said, "You want to change your recount your story here?"
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean, it's stuff like that. That's you can't win after that. That's why credibility is such the important C,
right.
because they might like the guy, they might find him personable, they might feel compassion towards him or think he's compassionate,
Yeah.
but he's lost credibility. It's done.
Yeah. Somebody said, the truth is, you will tell the truth 100% of the time the way it happened. If you're telling the truth, I'm butchering it, but basically the concept is, if you're telling the truth, it's going to be the same every time somebody asks you the same question.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And most of the time, in my cases, the truth is the best thing. If the truth is not good for us, we try to settle the case.
Right.
But most of the time, the truth is the best, and it gets convoluted if you try to mess with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I don't do much defense work. I don't do any, but I did in the beginning when I started, because I was having those issues. So I was getting calls from attorneys that said, I need you to go and photograph something in a way that I want to present it to the jury. Right. And I'm like, okay. I get out there and I'm like, that's not really what happened. Yeah.
They're trying to turn the data into evidence too
Right.
soon, right? It's like, you've got to get the data. You can't go out, and it's funny because I talk a lot about evidence in my work, and I say that you can collect and create evidence. And sometimes people think that's what I mean. And it's not. What I mean as far as creating evidence is, like, say, for example, and this isn't so much in the courtroom, but outside of the courtroom, and it's with, I do a lot of work with your own inner jury, that part of you that decides what to believe.
Right.
And if you want to believe that you are capable and that you want to be confident, then create evidence that you are capable by doing something that you didn't think you could do. So
Right.
I've actually done marathons and triathlons because I wanted to create evidence that I could do hard things.
Right.
And that's what I mean by creating evidence. But you don't want to create it for the courtroom, because you can't get, it doesn't fly.
Yeah, it's definitely can be tricky. All right, so let's talk about the last C there. Bring it on.
Charisma is my favorite. I mean, charisma, a lot of people think charisma is your body language and your facial expressions and all of that. But there's a researcher who's phenomenal and underappreciated, who's done a lot of research on charisma. His name is Dr. John Antonakis. And the way that I define charisma, according to his research, is the ability to compel action. So if you, for me in the courtroom, I want to have charisma so that I compel action and get the jury to find for my client. If you're a leader, you want to have the ability to compel action so that your team does the things that you're asking them to do. If you're an investigator, you want to compel action that the client decides to go with you. And
Right.
so that all rests upon charisma. And charisma is not all those flashy things. They weigh in a little bit, the energy piece and tone of voice. Of the body language, facial expressions, tone of voice is by far the most important, because you can't fake it. And so your charisma is really very much based on your beliefs. If you believe that you're capable of the thing you're saying you're capable of, that will come across in your tone of voice, and you will come across as charismatic. But more importantly, Matt, if you believe the person that you're asking to do something is capable of doing it, that gives you more charisma. So as a leader, if you really believe that your team can reach that quota, you will be seen as more and you tell them, you help them do that, talk to them through it.
You got to enable them. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if you believe the client is capable of seeing your value over someone else's, you will have charisma. And so that is a big part of charisma. Another big part is the way that you talk. Storytelling is having its day, and I'm 100% in for storytelling, but we don't always have time to tell stories, but we can use metaphors. We've used some metaphors here about the kitchen and the baking and all of that. The human brain loves metaphor. The human brain loves lists of three. The human brain loves contrast. And so these are some things that you can use to be more charismatic in your speech.
That's amazing. And then, you can get your kids to eat broccoli.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
You've got to see it from their perspective. You've got to make sure that you have not said in the past, well, if you eat the broccoli, you can have a brownie, and then not giving them the brownie.
Right.
And then you can use your belief in them and their ability to make good choices and get them to do it.
I'm just chuckling a little bit because I made broccoli last night with dinner. My kids all ate them.
I love broccoli.
That's a different show, Heather. This is great, and there's so many things here to really unpack and just understand. I think charisma is really important, and it is also not just that front forward thing, and sometimes it creates haters too, which is crazy. I'm experiencing a little bit of that now. It's funny too, because it's not me, it's my social media, which I'm not even running. I got somebody else running. I did a nice episode on that last episode on what we do here, but I get some people are like, I don't care for it. Like, these are like clients. I don't care for it. Okay.
Well, and I think that if you're not doing it, they say you're not doing it right if you don't have haters, right? It's
Right.
and I think that it is putting yourself out there. Some people don't think, and also I think that it's the same for lawyers and investigators, right? Some people are like, well, you shouldn't, as a lawyer, it's a professional job, but things are changing.
Right.
And one of the things that I really worry about, Matt, and I talk about this quite a bit, is that the people who actually have the credentials, who have the training and the experience to be a true good investigator or lawyer or doctor, are not putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
And instead, the people without the training are very comfortable putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
And because they have compassion and they're able to see things from the listener's perspective and sometimes, manipulate that a little bit, they're the ones that are being listened to. And so I do think it's important, and you have to understand that not everyone's going to like it.
Yeah, I think another key to building that comfort level is active listening. Yeah, we kind of talked about it earlier, but the ability to call back on things, like you and I, we've now been talking, I don't know, almost a half hour. To go back and like talk about cooking again, like we did initially, like that shows that you and I are paying attention to each other. We're actually
100%.
listening to each other, right?
Well, and it brings up a study that I love. And this is a study about emergency room doctors, but it applies to everyone. And I think that, these things are they're all metaphors for each other, right? This study said, okay, we know that when doctors or providers show patients compassion, patients do better. They heal faster, they get better quicker, they have better outcomes.
Right.
So what kind of actions are actions that people see as compassionate? Because it's not enough to say just be compassionate. You have to do specific things. What are those things that the receiver says that makes me feel like you have compassion for me? And the number one is that active listening.
Yeah.
If you are active listening, people feel like you have compassion for them. And it's the foundation of everything else. It's definitely the foundation of the charisma piece, definitely the foundation of the compassion piece. And even with credibility, people aren't going to believe you can help them if you don't listen to them. And
Right.
so it is everything.
You talked about in your talk, talking about real callbacks, the doctor you represented, who he mentioned to you, like, you actually listened to me, like nobody had asked me my opinion as to what happened or why something happened, and you actually asked that question, right?
Yeah, it's there's so often, tell me what you want me to know is a great question to lead off when you are first interacting with someone,
Yeah.
because they want to tell you not what I need to know, what you want me to know. And then
Correct.
truly listening to that, and then you can follow up, and you guys are so good at that. That's an investigator's job, is that follow up and dig in and see what's important and what they said and what was left unsaid. You can't get to any of that if you're not actively listening.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the best investigators I know that's been doing this for years. He's on the tail end of his career, but he had mentioned something years ago. We were talking about witness statements, and he talked about a situation where he would take a statement and he'd write everything down. He'd write the statement up, and then he'd close his notebook, and then he'd sit there and talk with the guy for about another 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe it was about the case, maybe it was about something else, and then he'd go back. And now the answers that this person was giving him were completely different because, oh, the interview's over. I'm not stiff anymore. Now I'm relaxed. And maybe we talked about baseball for 5 or 10 minutes. Hey, do you mind if I open my book back up and just go over a couple more things here? I want to make sure I got everything right.
Huge.
Genius.
It is genius. It is genius because people want you to see them as human beings. And I always say people want to feel seen, safe, and special.
Yeah.
And if you can help people to feel that way, you're going to feel better at the end of the interaction, and so are they.
Yeah, and there's a guy named John Hoda. If you're a member of Investigators Toolbox, you're listening to this, there's actually a video on how to take statements that we have for free in that community. So definitely you want to check it out. So that's my little plug for my
Do it.
side thing. But we got to get plugs in for you. So let's talk about what you have available. This is, obviously a fountain of knowledge here that's not just for lawyers. It's for people that want to get good answers or good results from whatever their tasks are. So let's talk about what you got available.
Yeah, the best place is my website is being redone. I'm rebranding as the H. Hansen Group, and it might be up by the time that this podcast is able to be listened to by all of you. But in the meantime, my LinkedIn, I'm Heather Hansen with an EN. There's actually another Heather Hansen that does communications, but she's blonde and I'm brunette. Yeah. So you want to look for the brunette. My Instagram, and I do a lot of reels on there about some of these things. It's at An Elegant Warrior. And I think the book, The Elegant Warrior, and the podcast, that is really the best resource for you if you want to dive into some of these things a little bit further. I talk about it all the time in the podcast. I have a lot of authors on of books that I've read that touch on these topics.
Sure.
And the book itself was a template for achieving life and career goals, according to Publishers Weekly.
Right. That's great. Thank you so much. We're going to put links to all that stuff in our show notes, so folks have everything. Thank you so much for coming on. This was great. And just riffing on not just investigative stuff, but life in general to get good results. I feel like I just had a session with a life coach. I'm ready to go.
Well, Matt, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And we'll check everybody out on the next show. Take care, everyone.
Thanks to Heather for coming on and discussing how to take effective witness statements. Thanks to 4 Pillars and Scope Now for sponsoring the podcast. Additional thanks to TrackOps IRB and the PI Institute of Education. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join. Please also follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. We'll be back soon with a new show. Make sure you tune in. Stay safe out there.